Third in NGT, Julian Bailey and Campbell Walter win overall.
The light drizzle sprinkling the circuit as the grid formed up is now developing into proper rain as the warm-up lap gets underway, and it's a rolling start in GT, so as they come round to finish this lap, the red lights should go green and this race should get underway. Well, you can hear it for yourself, absolutely appalling conditions. You can see it for yourself. The track is wet, the day is grim and murky. Hardly the resort coast of Portugal that we were all hoping for and expected. Hardly the conditions that the teams were expecting. And what about the new ones like this lot? Another of the new teams encouraged by the NGT rules, Mac Racing. Two brand new out-of-the-box GT3s, all the kits to go with them, and these are the conditions they have to welcome them to their first ever race in this championship. Not good for anyone, even those who have been here for years. Here's the grid then, with all the times on it set in the dry, so it may be better to look at the warm-up times from this morning. The only two exceptions to that are the two cars at the very tail end of the lineup, the Marcos and the RWS Porsche. Both of them had to set qualifying times in the wet. Lap times closer to the 2-minute mark will be the order of the day, and in the all-wet morning warm-up, the fastest car was the Pennzoil Porsche of Magnus Wallander, the NGT car able to run closer to its dry pace than anybody else, and that could be a sign. It could mean that there will be an NGT car on the podium. Following the course car around the circuit, you can see that although there has been a lot of work here, there has been widening and there have been changes to the corner. There are parts of this circuit that are still very narrow at about 10 metres. Notably, that twisty uphill section out the back that leads them into the chicane at turn 9. That was very busy in qualifying and practice, likely to be busy in the race as well. Plus those two classic out-braking points on the run down towards turn 1, and again out the back on the run downhill towards turn 6, the two big hairpins at the end of the front straight. On board with Ni Amarim. Look, there's the red light, barely visible. There it goes, completely white. As the cars in front stand on the gas, the spray comes up. The only person who can see anything at all now is Julian Bailey as they come 4 and 5 abreast down towards turn 1 with David Hart, and we're on board with him now behind Vincent Vos in the number 12 Viper, and he's lost it in turn 1. Slides away, collects the number 15 Lister, and now they carry on. Well, a brief moment of excitement, but they all got away fairly cleanly considering the conditions as they piled into turn 1. Take another look at it now, on board with Hart as Voss comes round the outside, just touches the gas, the back end goes, he's out of control and collects the second Lister as he goes off. Julian Bailey leads it. Behind him, there is David Hart in the bright red Viper. Ni Amarim behind that. And then behind that is the number 11 Viper of Boris de Richburg. There is Vincent Vos catching up in number 12. And you can see that conditions are not very clever at all. They're as bad as they've ever been while the cars have been on track. We're on board with Louis Villamil in the number 67 Mac Porsche, and you can just about make out the back end of, I think that's number 22, the Viv Racing Porsche, but it's so difficult to tell, and the drivers have got to try and find out where the track goes. It's very easy to lose your way, forget where you are, and fail to recognise the corners, and that can be a little bit worrying, and it's worried someone. There was a Porsche on the side of the track. It was one of the Pennzoil cars. Red flash on the front makes it Robert Nairn as Julian Bailey with the Vipers in his wake tries to make a getaway, and it is all Vipers. There's the first of the Porsches, that's Wolfgang Kaufmann, And I think behind Wolfgang Kaufmann's number 3 Porsche, you caught a glimpse there of Fia Gt, number 21 in another of the Vipers. Got away very well, and there's a little bit of debate about that in the pit lane. And here is Vincent Vos making up his mistake, trying to close with the leaders once more. There's Kaufmann. Part of the Viper chasing after Julian Bailey, back on board in the 67 car. Midfield, where it is a really gutty day to go racing. Just look at how poor the visibility is. Julian Bailey still the only person who can see a great deal, hasn't got his wiper on yet, but in a few laps, if things go normally, he'll be catching up with the tail enders, and then he'll be having the same problems as everybody else. Meanwhile, on the pit wall, the managers are all doing strategy sums. This one could be interesting. In these conditions, the NGT cars could get away with one nice and comfortable pit stop, and that could bring them right up into contention at the end of the race. The GT2s will obviously use less fuel as well, but how much less? They will probably still need 2 stops, even if the second one's only a splash and dash. It's a big, long pit lane here at Estoril. There's the entrance on the right of the picture. That's nice and easy, but the exit's a long one, brings you right out into turn 3. So they lose a lot of time in the pit stops, and that could change the face of this race as we get towards the end of the 3 hours. And of course, these conditions could change it as well. Sliding all over the place now. Amorim in the number 1 Viper. Just saw the back end of it stepping out as he turned in. All the drivers working. Driving on sheet ice would be very similar. Hardly have to touch the throttle, as we've seen, and the thing goes away from you. But he seems to be catching the number 25 car quite easily, and it does seem as if there may be a problem there. Looking for a way through and not finding it here. When he's been passed, that looked like Vincent Vos on his way up. Yes, it was. Vincent Vos, who was second bidding for first in turn 1, then dropped back to midfield, has now blitzed his way forwards and is in at 4th place, at least, possibly even 3rd. He's indeed 3rd, isn't he now, behind Hart. So here's your NGT leader. That's Christophe Bouchou in the lava car, number 52. And Hart passed now by Vincent Vos in the chicane for 2nd place. So the Frenchman in the Belmondo Viper really on a charge as Hart closes the door, not having any of that. Turns left on the far section of the circuit. There is Vincent Vos again, and this is developing into a rare old scrap. Here it is again on board with Amorim. This is what it looked like. Through the chicane, very close together. Race leader on the right of the picture is number 14, the Lister of Julian Bailey. Behind in 2nd place, the Belmondo Viper, number 12 on Vincent Vos. And in 3rd place, trying to chase down Vos, the Red Viper of David Hart. And the Amorim behind, looking for his way past, and it's possible that the car in front of him, this bright red Viper, which ran so well last time in Valencia and ran so well in qualifying, may have a problem. Vos, and in 3rd place, trying to chase down Vos, the Red Viper of David Hart. And the Amorim behind, looking for his way past, and it's possible that the car in front of him, this bright red Viper, which ran so well last time in Valencia and ran so well in qualifying, may have a problem. Well, Amorim struggling with visibility. It's better from his side of the car. He can see a little bit more than we can, but not much. There's Fia Gt, and that debate in the pit lane, I think, is going to result in a 10-second stop-go penalty for 2 cars. But he's got number 19 right on his tail. You may have noticed, of course it's hard to miss it, let's be fair, and you may have noticed it crowding up behind the Viper. Remember that Cor Oyser started at the back of this grid and has launched himself through the field. Oyser is a driver's driver, and in these conditions that sort of thing really pays. Here's Amorim going for the pass, getting a little bit squirrely in the turn, and a complete pirouette. Didn't happen. Well, he's been trying to do that for quite some while. Got a bit of a sniff of a chance, and you can see that the penalty is severe if you get it wrong. At least Amarim rejoins and gets going. 14 Lister is just ahead of Vincent Vos, who spun at turn 1 in lap 1 and has fought his way up to challenge for the lead, because that is what he is doing. Absolutely flying around the circuit in these very difficult and treacherous conditions. We were saying earlier that the good drivers really can show their pace in these conditions. Voss has got that delicacy of touch point, obviously, which works for him, and he knows the car well. He's sat in a few Vipers himself. He's probably sat in that one when it was a different colour round at Orica, and is now showing that experience here in dreadful conditions at Estoril. Wolfgang Kaufmann is on the right of your picture as Lee Amarim recovers from his spin and passes Christoph Bouchou, who is the NGT leader and 7th overall. We said the NGT cars would show their class in the wet, and that is the case. 7th overall at the moment. Early days. Expect strategy to help them further up the field as well. We should see one of those NGT Porsches on the podium at the end of this race. Following Kaufmann, the GT2 Porsche really doesn't like this uphill section of the circuit, especially not through the chicane. It winds up transmissions and drive shafts particularly. Have to get it right, have to gentle it. You have to do that in the wet as well. All the advantage of the turbo is gone, and all of a sudden they'll have these things breathing down their neck like a pack of sharks. Right now, he's having to deal with Amarim, who is bound to pass. Here it comes, must go through here. Now, we've seen the Amarim lose it under braking while trying to make a pass before, but this time he gets through. And you can see that it's not an easy part of the circuit to do it on these tight and twisty corners that lead up into the chicane. Really very short in the chicane. Really have to work it. Really have to get it right in this weather. And here's a man who's been getting it right lap after lap. Thor Euser is nailing that Marcos. The conditions are absolutely right for them today. Wrong for Viet Racing, the number 22 car in the pits and retiring. Technical problem for them, a loss of power. It might be down to water in the system, but might be something else entirely. So park it and call it a day. There's your race leader, 14. Here is Vincent Vos in second place still. The gap between him and Bailey seesawing a bit, but in general Vos is quite comfortable on the tail of the Lister, and Julian Bailey is quite comfortable doing just enough to keep Vincent Vos at bay. What we do now is wait to see who makes the first mistake. One tiny little one is all it will take. Doesn't even need to result in a spin, but if Julian Bailey loses the back end, Vos will be closer, and there will be thinking about this fairly shortly, I think, because Thor Euser looks like a man who's on his way to the front of the field. To do the Marcos on the podium at the end of the race, and let's not underestimate the possibility for that here. Suffered from an overheating problem at Valencia, obviously isn't going to suffer from one in the pouring rain, so the Marcos able to deliver its full potential. The new transaxle in place has eliminated the Achilles heel in the transmission, which always brought it low before. And now this stupendously ugly machine, which is quite attractive in its brutality, is on its way to a good finish. This is Palmberger in the number 4, rising a car, getting all squirrely at the end of the straight, and just gets past Villeneuve. On board with that number 67 Porsche, and that was Riccitelli, and that, oh dear, just sent Villeneuve into a little bit of a spin as the 77 car went past. Really on its way up the field is that one. No real harm done for Villeneuve, turns it and rejoins the race. Well, it had to happen. Julian Bailey is in among the back markers. He's just gone past the number 7 Porsche of Gerald Reed, and Vincent Vos is going through as well. But that means from now on, Bailey is going to be driving in everybody else's rooster tail as well, and visibility for him is going to be a problem, just as it is for everybody else. Lister leads it, Belmondo Viper in second place, and somewhere behind that, a glimpse of yellow, which means that's Boris de Richebourg in the second of the 3 Belmondo Vipers, now running in third place. There it is, passing the Porsche, and behind that, bright red Viper, that's 25 in 4th place. Number 1 is in 5th place, that's Amarim, and then it is Wolfgang Kaufmann, followed by Christoph Buschu, who has now got Cor Euser in the Marcos banging on the back door. Well, what a charge through the field it's been for Cor Euser, right on the back row of the grid, and here we are now heading towards a points finish. Buschu is 7th and Cor Euser is 8th and catching him. Real racing car stuff this for Marcos. Really is a tremendously well developed car now, and it's starting to show its true potential this year, and expect Cor Euser and the team to be rewarded with good finishes, and expect them really to take advantage of conditions like this. Here is the number 15 Lister chasing through the field as well. Remember, he was tipped off in turn 1 by a spinning Belmondo Viper, and he's now up to 9th place on his way up through the field as he chases after this man. Because Euser is closing in on Buschu, pressuring the number 52 Porsche, and he's carrying the fight forward to the GT2 car of Wolfgang Kaufmann in front of him. Now, we said this might happen. We said that in these conditions, the NGT, the GT3 Porsche out of the showroom, comes with much better suspension, much better sorted than the GT2 car. Take away the power advantage, and you could well see some embarrassment in the GT2 camp. And under the impetus of the charge from Euser, Buschu is giving it everything, doesn't want to drop a place, comfortable in the lead of his class, but a good overall result is what he wants as well. Here's your race leader, this is Julian Bailey. Hasn't put a foot wrong. Stopped in turn 1 with everybody behind him, controlled the start beautifully, and is now reaping his reward. On board with Villanelle down in about 17th or 18th place, really down midfield, but a good steady drive in these conditions, and expect the pit stop advantage to work in his favour as well. Here comes Euser moving on Christoph Buschu. Easy as you like, he goes past through turn 6 and up 1 place. So now he's chasing after the man in front of him, that's Wolfgang Kaufmann in that car there, the second of the 2 Porsches, the black and white fighting a car, number 3 with the yellow door mirrors. He's got the 66 Porsche, the second of the Mack Racing cars, between him, but not for very long. On the gas coming out of the final corner, and away they go, with Buschu looking to take advantage of that. Euser got stuck behind the back marker. Buschu wanted to grab the place back, no such luck. Marcos well ahead, and not this lap is he going to catch the Freisinger Porsche. Maybe on the next one. Here's Harburn moving up as well, with the Lister really showing what a tremendous performer it is. Harburn showing what a tremendous drive he's putting in, because he was dead last, and he is really making time on the rest of the field. The Lister throwing the fuel consumption strategy out of the window, but who cares in these conditions, and really zipping up through the field. But just look at the way the rain is falling. Conditions are truly, truly dreadful, and the Lister, a naturally well-balanced car, so the drivers will all tell you, reaping the benefit of that. Peter Harmon gets after the rest of the field. On board again with Nee Amarim, 5th place in the Chamberlain Viper, through the chicane, still the red Castle Holland car in front of him. Nee Amarim, Portuguese driver, this is his home circuit, but I don't suppose even he's seen it like this very often. Heading towards the first corner as we go past the pits, braking very, very early, trying to make up a bit of ground and doing it there, closing up on the number 25 car, bringing it a little bit closer, but you still have to be so gentle, babying it out of the corners with the throttle, that back end so prone to just diving away. Race leader is Julian Bailey with Vincent Voss right up his tailpipe. This is very close indeed. Voss has been on the gas since he spun in turn one, and he's now closed right up with the leader, and he is going to give Julian Bailey a very hard time indeed. And the pit garage opens, and all the hard work that the Conrad team have put in has paid off, because this is lap 11 and Franz Conrad joins the race from the pit lane with a hastily rebuilt tail end as Thor Euser carries on his pursuit of Wolfgang Kaufmann. This is the lap. Not last time because he wasn't close enough, but this time look how close he is coming out of turn 13. Watch him now come out of the slipstream, draw alongside. He's going to outbrake Kaufmann into turn one and grab the position. Euser, from last on the grid, is now sixth and in the points. Somewhere behind the number 36 Porsche of Manuel Montero, the Estoril racing car. There is your race leader, Julian Bailey, in number 14 Lister, and right behind him you've got a better view of him than Julian Bailey has, but he knows he's there. That's Vincent Voss in the leading Belmondo Viper. 3 cars on track this weekend, and that's the one that's placed highest, swirling through the chicane. You can see so jumpy under power, and the conditions are getting worse. It started raining almost as the race started, but now just look how heavily the rain is falling here. The track is awash. The rooster tails are growing, visibility is decreasing, and the rainfall is, if anything, increasing. Now, these are truly, truly dreadful conditions to be racing in. The lights hardly help at all. The drivers relying on the professionalism of each other to stay out of trouble. But when you're lapping slower cars, that's never reliable enough. These are very fraught conditions for everybody, and the result of this race is far from a foregone conclusion, especially when Vincent Voss is this close to Julian Bailey. Well, Lister hasn't had this sort of challenge all weekend, certainly didn't have it in Valencia, but the rain has levelled the playing field, as we have said so many times, and now it has levelled it right out. Vincent Voss is definitely challenging for the lead. If he could see enough, he would find a bit of track and have a go at the Lister, I'm sure. Perhaps he won't be able to do it at the end of the straights because the Lister's got the speed on the Viper, but somewhere in the turns, maybe not here, but perhaps in the approach to the chicane, he will find a way past. You can hear, listen, just how heavily that rain is falling. And you can see just how wet the surface of the racetrack is. Wheel spinning every time they shift up through the gears. Even as they go into sixth, they were wheel spinning in the morning warm-up, and they'll be doing it now even with full wets on. Look at this, Vincent Voss has a look down the side of the Lister. He's not close enough, lost a bit of ground on that long front straight. Braking into turn one, closes up a bit. He may just have a braking advantage over the Lister. And here's the second of the Belmondo cars. That's Dirichborg in number 11. Well, it's definitely not going to go to its full distance in terms of laps, so strategy is going to be everything. And here's somebody who might benefit from that. Look at this, Richard Telly in the number 77, second in NGT off the back of the grid, leaping up the overall leaderboard, the drive of his life in these conditions, and really making the most of it, and thinking ahead to the time when he may stop, trying to make it as long as possible. Nobody can go more than 55% of race distance as a driver, but they can stretch it to that full 55%. Well, nobody knows what the full distance will be. It'll be on the stopwatch, it'll be 3 hours, so they'll do it probably on time, keep the drivers out in NGT as long as they can, and get one good pit stop under their belt, and then try and go all the way to the finish and pick up a pit stop advantage over the GT2 cars. That will change the way the leaderboard looks. Well, this bloke is really on it. Ricciutelli, fastest car on the track at the moment. Vanson Voss has been faster, but Ricciutelli really is storming through the field. A tremendous performance from the Red Bull car as he picks them off time after time after time, and that really does illustrate how well sorted these GT3 Porsches are as they arrive at the racetrack. Race leader Julian Bailey being sorted, or at least Vanson Voss is trying to sort him from second place, hasn't managed it yet, and it doesn't look as though he is going to be able to on this sort of performance. Perhaps waiting to get a pit stop advantage if the Belmondo crew can turn them round quickly at the end of the first hour. Safety car on track, yellow flag, safety car ball out, and you know that is because of the weather. And the field lines up behind the safety car. Half an hour into the race, and there is the order as the safety car bunches them all up. Now that means we're going to get a restart behind the safety car, and that could change everything for Julian Bailey. He managed it perfectly the first time. Vanson Voss is really on it though, and that will give him the opportunity perhaps he needs to make a dash past the number 14 lister. But the rain getting worse and the conditions deteriorating even further here at Estoril. Absolutely unbelievable downpour, and the red flag comes out. They've stopped the race because the race cars cannot keep up with the safety car. Narrow tyres, four-wheel drive, and the safety car can go round faster than the race cars, which are aquaplaning all over the place, slipping all over the track. So they're going to halt them on the grid now, and they'll go for a restart when the conditions clear up. Stop.